May I turn now to the coal industry? For a little over 7 months, we've been living through an agonizing strike. Now, let me make it absolutely clear. The miners' strike was not of this government's seeking, nor of its making. Now, we've heard in debates at this conference some of the aspects that have made this dispute so repugnant to so many people. We were reminded by a colliery manager that the NUM always used to accept that a pit should close when the losses were too great to keep it open, and that the miners set great store by investment in new pits and new seams. And under this government, that new investment is happening in abundance. You can almost repeat the figures with me. £2 million in capital investment in the mines for every day this government has been in power. So no shortage of capital investment. We heard moving accounts from 2 working miners about just what they have to face as they try to make their way to work. The sheer bravery of those men, and thousands like them, who've kept the mining industry alive, is beyond praise. Scabs, their former workmates called them. Scabs? They are lions. What a tragedy it is when striking miners attack their workmates. Not only are they members of the same union, but the working miner is saving both their futures. Because it is the working miners, whether in Nottinghamshire, Derbyshire, Lancashire, Leicestershire, Staffordshire, Warwickshire, North Wales or Scotland, it is the working miners who've kept faith with those who buy our coal, and without their custom, thousands of jobs in the mining industry would be already lost. And then we heard, unforgettably, from the incomparable Mrs. Irene McGibbon, who told us what it's like, to be the wife of a working miner during this strike. She told us of the threats and intimidation suffered by herself and her family, and even her 11-year-old son. But what she endured only stiffened her resolve. To face the picket line day after day must take a very special kind of courage. But it takes as much, perhaps even more, to the housewife who has to stay at home alone. Men and women like that are what we are proud to call the best of British. And our police, who uphold the law with an independence and a restraint perhaps only to be found in this country, are the admiration of the world. To be sure, the miners had a good deal, and to try to prevent a strike, the National Coal Board gave to the miners the best ever pay offer, the highest ever investment, and for the first time, the promise that no miner would lose his job against his will. We did this despite the fact that the bill for losses in the coal industry last year was bigger than the annual bill for all the doctors and dentists in all the National Health Service hospitals in the United Kingdom. Let me repeat it. The losses, the annual losses in the coal industry are enormous, 1.3 billion last year. You have to find that money as taxpayers. It's equal to the sum we pay in salaries to all the doctors and dentists in the National Health Service. Mr. President, this is a dispute about the right to go to work of those who have been denied the right to go to vote. And we must never forget that the overwhelming majority of trade unionists, including many striking miners, deeply regret what has been done in the name of trade unionism. When this strike is over, and one day it will be over, we must do everything we can to encourage moderate and responsible trade unionism so that it can once again take its respected and valuable place in our industrial life. Meanwhile, we are faced with the present executive of the National Union of Mine Workers. They know that what they are demanding has never been granted either to miners or to workers in any other industry. Why then demand it? Why ask for what they know cannot be conceded? There can only be one explanation. They didn't want a settlement, they wanted a strike. Otherwise, they would have balloted on the Coal Board's offer. Indeed, 1/3 of the miners did have a ballot and voted overwhelmingly to accept the offer. Mr. President, what we have seen in this country is the emergence of an organized revolutionary minority who are prepared to exploit industrial disputes, but whose real aim is the breakdown of law and order and the destruction of democratic parliamentary government. We've seen the same sort of thugs and bullies at Grunwick, more recently against Eddie Shaw in Stockport, and now organized into flying squads around the country. If their tactics were to be allowed to succeed, if they are not brought under the control of the law, we shall see them again at every industrial dispute organized by militant union leaders anywhere in the country. One of the speakers early in this conference realized this fact, realized that what they are saying is, give us what we want, or we're prepared to go on with violence. And he referred to Danegeld. May I add to what that speaker said? We never pay anyone Danegeld, no matter how trifling the cost, for the end of that game is oppression and shame, and the nation that plays it is lost. Yes, Rudyard Kipling. Who could put it better? Democratic change there's always been in this, the home of democracy. But the sanction for change is the ballot box. It seems that there are some who are out to destroy any properly elected government. They are out to bring down the framework of law. That is what we have seen in this strike. And what is the law they seek to defy? It is the common law created by fearless judges and passed down across the centuries. It is legislation scrutinized and enacted by the Parliament of a free people. It is legislation passed through a House of Commons, a Commons elected once every 5 years by secret ballot of one citizen, one vote. This is the way our law was fashioned, and that is why British justice is renowned across the world. No government owns the law. It is the law of the land, the heritage of the people. No man is above the law, and no man is below it. Nor do we ask any man's permission when we require him to obey it. Obedience to the law is demanded as a right, not asked as a favor. So said Theodore Roosevelt. Mr. President, the battle to uphold the rule of law calls for the resolve and commitment of the British people. Our institutions of justice, the courts and the police, require the unswerving support of every law-abiding citizen, and I believe they will receive it. The nation faces what is probably the most testing crisis of our time, the battle between the extremists and the rest. We are fighting, as we have always fought, for the weak as well as for the strong. We are fighting for great and good causes. We are fighting to defend them against the power and might of those who rise up to challenge them. This government will not weaken. This nation will meet that challenge. Democracy will prevail.